From the squish band to when the exhaust port opens is when this engine is making all of its power. Well, hey guys, how is everyone? I hope you're well. I hope you've enjoyed watching the other parts of this series. I hope you found it either entertaining or maybe technical, educational. Take note, this ain't the only way to do things. This is just how I'm going to do it on this particular saw, or how I would do it on a saw that's very similar. Very similar build to how we done the little Echo CS 4910. That turned into a really strong little saw. It's very similar to how I'd do a 346 build, or most any other saw this small. What we're going to discuss here, and we may get into the cleanup and polish work on this port, widening the port. We're not going to go crazy with it. On this build, it's just totally unnecessary. You know, we're, like I said in the last video, we're not building something crazy. We just want a good, stout, zippy little 50cc saw. Or in this case, I think it was 51 cc's and some change when I threw it in a calculator this morning. But anyway, the exhaust port. From the last video, I'd put some captions in and I'd talked about it. Even the title of it was lowering the exhaust port. I understand that's kind of backwards from what you're used to seeing. A lot of people don't share things that actually work. I'm not saying raising it wouldn't work. You'd just get a different kind of saw. In some cases, it may not be a saw you would enjoy. It just all depends on what you're using it for. You know, what you like to run. But I can promise you, even with the roof lowered on this saw still turns some pretty serious RPMs, enough to please most people. You know, you'll know you have a saw in your hands that has had some work done to it. Anyway, to the port. Why lower the exhaust port? And this is beneficial on a lot of saws. There's a lot of saws that they're usually orange and white, or depending on how old it is, it could be gray and red. In some cases, most cases on those, and there's other orange saws as well, but we'll just say there's a lot of saws out there that you absolutely have to do some kind of machine work to get that saw to perform to the best of its ability. These saws, you know, some people may argue it's unneeded. It's probably not with the numbers that was on this. You could have ditched the base gasket, done some cleanup work, threw some intake and transfer time on it, and you'd have had a pretty respectable running saw. But if you have the ability to do a little bit of machine work, it helps. It truly does. Even just the least little bit, or moving things a couple of degrees, shaving 20 thousandths here and there. Guys, it is a noticeable difference. I hope by now you figured out I'm honest. I'm not going to lie to you. If it don't work, I ain't going to do it. Anyway, we'll start, we'll say, your typical 4-stroke engine. In the 4-stroke, you know, your valves are up top, overhead valved engines. It'll start the piston coming down, intake, piston going back up, compression, you get your bang, piston going back down, power, piston going back up, exhaust valve opens, exhaust. That's your 4 strokes to that engine: intake, compression, power, and exhaust. And I was taught this stuff back when teachers gave it them. We were made to memorize that and had a test on it. Your 2-cycle engine, all of that's pushed into what, you know, it's a 2-stroke engine. It's all of that's pushed into 2 strokes. What we're going to talk about right now is the compression and power portion of this. And some people may not agree with it and say I've got it backwards or I'm full of it, but maybe I am. Who knows? But this is the best way I can explain to you as to why we would want to lower the port on a smaller saw. And like I said, in some cases, some larger saws benefit from it, say an 066 or a 660. 9 times out of 10, those have horrible timing right out of the gate. They'll open in the mid-90s on the exhaust roof. I'm sure they done that to make the saw easier to start, you know, to kind of cut compression down a little bit, make it live and last longer. You know, there's a lot of reasons to it, but that's just one particular saw that really benefits from lowering the exhaust roof. I've done it here on many of them. You know, like I've said a million times, it is what it is. But we'll start here. This is a 45mm bore. You know, it's a pretty small piston, pretty small surface. Give you a look at the band and the chamber, and some of this may be too technical, may not make a bit of sense to anyone. Squish band in this particular cylinder, it is not very wide at all. Have a pretty good sized combustion chamber. If you guys are old school and have done some hot rodding back in the day, think closed chamber and open chamber cylinder head. You know, like on your old big block Chevys and Fords and small blocks. Most of you'll know the difference between a large and a small combustion chamber. In this case, we'd probably call that a large chamber. And I think that's kind of where I probably had half a dozen guys tell me the open port cylinder was capable of making more power. I don't have it in front of me, but it had a fairly wider squish band, a smaller combustion chamber. You would be able to get, in the end, more static compression out of that saw with the same amount of machine work, running the same timing numbers. It'd be a torqueier, stronger feeling saw. But in this case, I think this cylinder in combination will run plenty good enough. She'll be a good strong saw. I think he'll enjoy it when he gets it back. I'm going to cut some wood with it myself before I send it back, because I really love these smaller, what we like to call an old man saw build. And anyway, to the strokes of the engine. Back to making compression, and I keep touching the monitor, so if it jumps or shakes, that's me touching the screen. If you've used a GoPro, you know how tiny that monitor is. I'm kind of cross-eyed here, looking at the cylinder through one eye and looking at the monitor at another. Trying to get the best shots here, but compression. I think we ended up with 24 thou squish on this. We make compression from right here when the exhaust port shuts, and from there to the squish band are 24 thousandths from the squish band. That's all the area that we have to make compression. Okay, what happens at the compression stroke? We'll get a spark from our coil, usually just shortly before top dead center, usually 26 to 30 degrees beforehand. And we get our explosion, and this is your power stroke. You're going to make power from here to when this exhaust port cracks open. That is your power stroke. Now, if you went in and raised this roof, say to 100 or 98 degrees, with what compression that we have, our static compression is what you're making here off of the squish band and the chamber and the top of the piston. You just have that little bit of area to make compression and power. Now, if you raise the roof on this, you've just taken away from your compression stroke, you've taken away from your power stroke of the engine. It may rev higher, it may be a little more efficient, but when you get a real chain, and I don't mean length, I don't get into all of that, who's running the longest bar, I mean a good, sharp, full comp, aggressive chain on it, into some real wood, cherry, oak, hickory, you know, or locust in a lot of cases around here, you're going to notice a difference. Now, if all you're cutting is some kind of pine, or balsam or something like that. You know, you may like the saw with the raised roof, but if you'll follow what I'm going to show and do here in this build, I promise you, you'll like the saw better than just going in, raising the exhaust roof, giving it some intake timing, muffler modding it, and calling it a done deal. I kind of hope that wasn't too technical. Maybe some redneck technicality here. Basically, just in short, from the squish band to when the exhaust port opens is when this engine is making all of its power. That explosion shoving that piston down, that's what's turning the crankshaft, guys. And you know, I hope that makes sense. If not, I'm sorry. Maybe someone smarter can explain it better, but that's technically that's kind of the gist of it. I ain't the best teacher in the world, but you know, like I've said, back when I was taught this stuff, the teachers actually cared about what they were teaching you and wanted you to learn. Okay guys, so I'm going to discuss one little thing here before we get into the port work on this, is widening ports. What I've done here is I took the old piston and put it up in there, and I went in and made a couple lines out on the edges of that port. You're going to need something pretty thin to do so. You can take a scribe if it's an old piston and make some marks. I wouldn't recommend doing it on the one you're going to use, but just for sake of this video, I got in there with the Sharpie, made some marks. What you would do is measure that, and you know, you can take this pretty far. This will let you know if you can widen. If it's a piston with opened windows, obviously you really need to watch that. Good rule of thumb, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, is you can go 65% of the bore diameter on widening your ports. Okay, now what does this mean? It means, in theory, safely you should be able to take the port width to, it's a little over 29 millimeters. We'll just call it 29 millimeters on the total port width. Right now we measuring that. It's around 25 millimeters. I don't get too carried away with this stuff, especially on a work saw. If you really want to do that and take it to the max width of 65%, what you would do, you'd start by making a couple swipes. Maybe just start on one side, or a few swipes on each side, like removing very little material. Then you would go back to your piston or whatever you've used. You use the mandrel you made, or you can roll up a piece of cardstock and go in and make marks and measure. Basically what I'm saying is you would want to whittle your way out to that max, and I'd recommend it not even going that far. In my opinion, you will benefit from it, but it's a minimal gain, and you know, let's face it, it's a lot harder to put material back than it is to take it away. What I'll usually do, and I've done so many, about know what I'm taking, about know what my cutters are pulling with one swipe. I'll take a few passes down each side, and usually that widens it a millimeter or two, believe it or not. This one will probably shoot for a millimeter on each side or something, and get her cleaned back up, and you know, call it a done deal on widening the port. But I just kind of wanted to go over that. Again, take a less is more approach to stuff. Widen it a little bit to go a long way. But you know, if you're trying to squeeze the most amount of power out of this you want, you know, you can push it onto that 65%, or maybe even more if you're brave enough. At the end of the day, this piston is close to being, it's got a really, really wide skirt. We'll just leave it at that, I guess. But anyway, I get set up over here, and we'll do what little bit of work we're going to do to this port, and you know, then we'll wrap this video we'll wrap this video up. I'm just going to start by cleaning up what's the rest of the carbon out of that port. We want to stay away from the roof of that port. We want to avoid it like the plague, or the big C rather, which I've had 3 times I know of this last round of whatever we had. I don't know if that was it or not. Cutter I'm using, I use it a lot. I really like it. I rarely use carbides anymore, and that cord's the power cord going to the camera. It's a Dremel tile cutter. They're a costly little thing if you can find them. They work really well. And I'm not going to video every bit of this, but I could quit talking and just throw it on a real fast speed, I guess. It's really light pressure. Obviously, you can push on that and really pull some material. Your other options, a cartridge roll or sandpaper roll, or something on your slotted mandrel. I'm about out of cartridge rolls. I've got to order some. Time to clean it up. You want to stay away from that step up there. You don't want to get it all gouged up and cut it down. End up with 3 ports and all of your work be done for nothing. Something else we'll talk about, and this is totally up to you. I've not really found it real beneficial, but you could even lay a gasket out. These things are never completely symmetrical. You can see we ain't really messed with that much and see that they're not. Some of the ones that's made completely square look pretty good on your steel saws. A lot of your older stuff, but 9 times out of 10, none of this stuff's completely symmetrical, even if it's a moly cylinder or any of the old K&S ones or steel or whatever. But what I was getting back at, you can, if you want, I've not really seen a big benefit from it. You can really hog all of this out and make it really huge. Again, I'll stick to that less is more. It ain't really going to hurt anything if you do, but in my experience, it doesn't really help a lot either. You got to kind of just look at this opening in here. It's already larger out here than it is in there, no matter what you do with it inside. I'm not telling you not to enlarge it and hog it out, but I'm just saying I'm not going to do it here, and I don't anymore on saws. If you go back to some of my really earliest videos, I do show opening the mouth of the ports up really big, but I've just found that it's just wear and tear on your cutters that's unnecessary, and as far as doing timed cuts, I really ain't seen no benefit to doing it. Alright guys, I'll video widening the port a little bit. You know, just take your time. Count your swipes. Don't come in on a big crazy angle. Try to keep with the profile of the port. Those engineers kind of knew what they were doing on all of this. Just grind slow, count your swipes. Come to the other side. Obviously, I don't think I'm going to be able to video that, but Kind of hard to video and grind at the same time. Everybody goes on about Husky plating and Husky cylinders being hard to port. I don't know, I ain't never found it. Some of them are a little harder than others, but just change whatever tooling you're using. Obviously, if you're using big, aggressive Alumahogs, yeah, you're probably going to chip some hard plating. Just go to a cutter that's not nearly as aggressive. And you know what you would do there, and this is just for demonstration purposes, it's not all I'm going to do. You'd make your swipes either on one side or just on the other side and go back and measure. I don't get carried away with it. You know, I may be leaving room on the, or power on the table by not taking them to the max, but you know, that's just me. It's just how I build. Every builder's different. But for sake of the video, once I'm done with the port, we probably will remeasure the exhaust port. If you remember, it's 25 millimeters wide before. That was a little, you know, it was 25 millimeters wide before. We'll measure it again and see what we picked up. Alright guys, we're going to do some more fine cleanup work. Cartridge roll. I'm going to have to order some. I had to dig through the drawer to find that one. Just run it slow. You can polish with these if you use really light pressure. I've shown it in other videos. And I buy this kit from Summit Racing Equipment. It's actually an automotive place. And we'll run that all the way in on the side. You can do the whole damn port with these if you get them aggressive enough and take your time. They'll remove a lot of material pretty quickly. Again, I'm videoing, and normally I've got this up closer to me doing the work, but I'm out at arm's length in front of the camera just to show you guys a little bit of porting. And again, even with this roll, you want to avoid the roof. I'll probably finish that up and get all the fine detail work on it off camera here. And when we get to the polishing portion of this, I'll bring you guys back. Okay guys, so the next step in the process is we put that stupid cord our slotted mandrel into for them. And again, I'm out at arm's length. Normally I got all this a little closer to me, but we're going to start out 220 grit and move up to 400 grit. Honestly, most people would probably like the 220 finish. I've taken them all the way up as far as end them with the polishing compound. In this particular build, we'll probably end with the 400. It'll be plenty slick enough. A lot of people don't fool with polishing. Like you say, it's unneeded, unnecessary. That's fine. You know, there's no power gain to it. They are flow bench data showing the polished port will make it flows 1% better than an unpolished port. Is that enough to justify spending the time to do it? No, it's not why we do it. We do that so carbon deposits don't build up over time and wreck your saw. A lot of saws fail over carbon deposits just in the exhaust port alone. And a lot of people may just leave it that cartridge roll finish, which would be fine too. Ain't gonna make or break the deal. I've sprayed some penetrating lube in there, WD-40, whatever you want to use, and this can get aggravating because your paper generally will come off. And if you run into the inside of the port, it will begin to break the head, or dull it down, or bevel, tamper, whatever you want to call it. Alright guys, there's where we're at just after the 220. You could leave it there. I mean, that's pretty good. If I had to light on it on the right angles, I mean, it's slick as glass. Is it a mirror finish just yet? No, not really, but we will step up to the 400. We'll polish a little bit, and then, you know, that'll probably be it on this port. I have to put some light on it before we can get an actual good look at it, but turned out pretty good. I did do some more polish work with 400 off the camera, but and you can take this further. I've taken them a lot further, you guys know that, but just to give you a good look at it, right there you can kind of see how shiny she really is. Pretty good looking port. There we go. You can kind of see the shape and the width of it. I did slide the piston back in and make marks and measure again. I just went to the other side of the piston where there wasn't any marks. I can find the dang thing laying here now. I came up with 27 millimeters that round. What does that mean? We widened the port 2 millimeters. We went from 25 millimeters to 27. You could take it to the max of 29 if you wanted it. It does not take much if you've got a cutter that has any bit of aggressiveness to it at all. Material moves pretty daggone fast. That's why I kind of urge using the cartridge rolls when you can. Now this port is enlarged. I know I went on about, you know, hogging out and making it really big. When you clean up, you're removing material. When you go in with your sandpaper roll or cartridge roll, you're removing material. When you polish, you're removing material. So you did end up with a somewhat larger port than where you started. Maybe we can get some more of the shininess to show. There you go. I'll try to take some still shots of it as well just to show it. Well guys, that's probably going to be it in this segment of the video. As always, thank you guys for watching. Y'all stay safe, and everybody try to have a great day.